Oh, the humanity. How can one not feel sad for one King George Russell of Kings Lynn Norfolk? Now, I know people hate him. I know he can be a bit sharp over the radio. I know he will sacrifice even his grandma for even a millisecond of pace on track. But I say all of that to say this. He was God tier this weekend, chat. Let's be honest. Qualifying, nobbled it. Qualifying for the Grand Prix, nobbled it again. And I feel like he was on the brink of nobbling 25 points and bridging the gap materially. He won Kimi Antonelli for the Drivers' Championship. I felt like he was playing chess where others around him, mention no names, young Padawan Antonelli, were playing checkers. I feel like he made mistakes. Of course he did. Sometimes on the hairpin, out braking himself. He was never getting the nose turned in. However, I feel like in the racecraft, proof positive that Charles Leclerc was onto something last race about Kimi Antonelli's soft, vulnerable underbelly being his wheel to wheel. I feel like George had it under control to a lesser or greater extent. Nevertheless, chat, now 43 points is the delta in the championship. I, amongst others, need to take Kimi Antonelli seriously. Canadian Grand Prix. George was meant to dominate this and take himself 25 points because he's a Canadian Grand Prix specialist. You'll have seen by now the stats that he always outperforms around this track, and now around here he loses himself a net 23 points. That, ladies and gentlemen, for the Drivers' Championship is not very good. Kimi Antonelli, WDC champion in 2026. I mean, he's got all the space. Absolutely, if he pulls together the hypotheticals around here, set to 1, 2 and 3, he was quicker than George Russell. However, some say that the thing that you want to invest in most is risk-adjusted pace. Anybody can go and kill themselves and make a mistake at every single turn. Sometimes you will piece it together. Even a broken clock gets it right twice a day. And by dint of that, you can see that Kimi Antonelli has offs and therefore makes mistakes. The question going forward is whether Kimi will be able to reel that back in, trend towards zero, the errors of the unforced variety as we go into Europe, tracks around which he struggled massively last year. You remember that Miami, low grip, Kimi always does well around those low minimum speed type turns. What about when we get to the high speed stuff, when we go to a Silverstone or a Spa? And it becomes how quickly you can get round the medium to high speed stuff at a Pouan or a Radillon or a Maggots and a Beckett's. That's when I'd expect King George to firmly stamp his authority on this circumstance. You've got to give Kimi credit with a view to not get on the Kimi Antonelli bandwagon just yet. Of course, he's 19 years old. Quicker than quick things, scarily quick. Reminds me of Lewis Hamilton in 2007 and Maximilian Verstappen very early on in his career. That type of equalizer pace that you can't really do anything about. But bloody Nora, to win a championship, you got to be more than just fast, eh? You got to not make mistakes. 43 points is a lot though, chat. And I say all of that to say this. There are 16 drivers prior to Kimi Antonelli, 17 now, who have won 4 of the first 5 races in the championship. All 16 of those have gone on to win themselves a championship of the drivers' variety. Kimi Antonelli is now breathing rare statistical air. He would be the first one to drop the ball, but I think it's a new era. 25 points plays 18. 72% of the first points is the first person's point score is what the second person gets, as opposed to 60% back in the day, 10 points versus 6. I think then the second place man, mention no names, George Russell, if indeed he can be consistent, can make this a bit tricky. Let's talk about the racing, chat. Because whatever you want to say about George Russell, and I understand he has his haters, surely you enjoy racing as a Formula 1 fan, and I think we would have got ourselves a God tier 1. It's everything that we've been asking for. You don't need overtakes every couple of laps. The N24 series last week was proof positive of that, was it not? Max wasn't overtaking every single lap, but it was stakes and it was uncertainty and it was crescendoing to a god tier ending. The finale would have been incredible. I feel sad for all of us as F1 fans. I feel like a rising racing tide floats all F1 boats, and it's a pity, it's a shame, not just for George and Kimi, who again, fair play to the dude, magnanimous in victory. I feel like it's a shame that we missed out on what could have been a generational battle. Here's hoping that they extrapolate it out for the rest of the season and that they renew rivalries. Let's talk to Maximilian Verstappen very quickly. Didn't have himself a car, but God tier with Sir Lewis. I thought that Max was gonna play it again, Sam. That it was going to be Kota all of a sudden. 2021 settings where we had an onrushing Lewis Hamilton on fresher tyres, and all of a sudden he was able to pull more time out of his AWS. Didn't do it though this time. Sir Lewis Canada. Do you know what I mean? Put some respect on his name. Father Time, undefeated, undisputed. Fortunately for Sir Lewis, there's going to come days when he can rewind it back, when he looks like prime Sir Lewis Hamilton. And he did today. Clinical in the overtake, speed for days, made Charles Leclerc look like modern day Jean Alesi. For real mistakes from Charles as per usual, and Lewis Hamilton over there looking more like the Scuderia Ferrari driver than ever. He said that he wasn't going to be on the sim for this race, and he didn't need to be because it's Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Let's see how Lewis gets on when we get to tracks around which he struggles, and whether that modus operandi not to utilise the sim will prevail. I want to shout out to the FIA again. Did you see the start chat? What are we doing? What are we doing? You mean to tell me that you can't activate some lights? You are the premier motorsport formula in the world, and you get a full start like the Grand National did so many moons ago. This isn't good enough, chat. And especially when you hear the audible, the batteries all whirring and dropping off. You don't need this FIA. It's not good enough, and you want to do better. Speaking of battery, important that I place this footnote on the circumstance that was the Canadian Grand Prix. Many had said that George ultimately made a mistake, that he outbraked himself. A lack of mechanical empathy led to his downfall at the Canadian Grand Prix. False. Toto came out and said after the race that it was a battery failure, a DNF. It was reliability, nothing doing pointing the finger at George. This isn't to say that George was perfect. He made a gazillion mistakes. He absolutely wasn't on his aim game necessarily. But can you celebrate his downfall at the altar of reliability or lack thereof? I think this is disgraceful. And again, do you want to cut off your nose to spite your face, punch the air when George goes off, and then endure yet another processional race with Kimi Antonelli, a dominant W17, and no racing for first? Absolutely not. We move, therefore, on to Monaco next time out. And I think those Ferraris are in good nick, chat. I will be honest with you. In the hands of Sir Lewis and Charles Leclerc, I think it will get a bit techie and a bit of ADO to boot. I think it could be Team Scuderia Ferrari for the win at Monaco, potentially. Poor George Russell though overall. That's the sentiment that I take away from this, and not just poor George Russell, poor F1 fans for sadly not getting the level of racing that was promised between Kimi and George Russell for all of the marbles over the course of a 70-lap Canadian Grand Prix at the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve. Oh, the humanity.